Hey Ringside crew, welcome to the internationally known Dudes at Ringside podcast. And now here's your host, Joe Panther III.
Hello there, wrestling fans! Welcome to another episode of the internationally known Dudes at Ringside podcast. I am Joe Panther III, and today, Ringside crew, man, it's been a great year so far to start 2025. And I have a gentleman that is absolutely killing it here in the independent wrestling scene. He is from the UK. Introduce yourself to my internationally known audience.
Uh, Hello, I'm Jozy Lapkin. I am a trainee wrestler from the UK, and I mainly train at the Wrestle Island Temple.
Awesome. So who trained you, and when did you get this love when did you start loving professional wrestling?
So my main trainers are Sean Only, and at the moment I've been trained a lot by Max Brooker. But I've liked wrestling since I was like a little kid. Like I grew up with wrestling more than like football or youth soccer. Like I've always been a fan of wrestling. I've always loved it. Like I grew up playing Here Comes the Pain, like the wrestling game, and then my dad's a big wrestling fan, so he kind of brought me up on wrestling. Um,
Awesome. So you played Here Comes the Pain. Were you the one that always played as Brock Lesnar and had him that always faced the small guys, or were you say
no,
you always play as the small guys?
my favorite wrestler, like when I was little, was Rey Mysterio because he was just the underdog and like someone my size as I am now. But like I think back then, like I could see like how like it's the smaller guy, so he always fascinated me with Rey Mysterio.
Awesome. I was always the guy that when I would make my creative character, I'd make them my size, but then my friends would always make themselves like, the big show size, but always gave him Brock Lesnar's clothesline.
But
Remember that famous clothesline? They
yeah,
would run in like absolutely pulverize the guy, and they
yeah.
would just flip in the air and just drop like a dead bird.
Then I think when I was about like I think I was like six maybe when I like kind of like my dad helped me make my character, but I want to be like all my favorite like cartoons and films combined into one wrestler. So that was my character. But I was like big show size, but could do Rey Mysterio and Rob Van Dam flips. And that was my favorite character I've ever made ever.
If you saw the guy my friend used to make, you'd absolutely lose your mind. It was like he was 7 feet tall with these skinny arms and these point sharp things on top of his head. And he would do like the Brock Lesnar clothesline. He'd do tombstones, choke slams, and he would look like a zombie. So he was like the red eye. He make his eyes really squinty and pointy, but like really creepily big. Like made him like he looked like a demon, like something was hiding in the woods for like a billion years. Like if you ran into him in the woods, you're like, well, I just lost it in my pants and I died at the same time. Um, so with you being in the wrestling business now, does it feel different now that you grew up watching it so much that now you're in the middle of it?
Yeah, because I've said this to a couple of like people, like a lot of people I trained with. Like I like growing up, I never wanted to be a wrestler. Like it never crossed my mind of being a wrestler. Like during my whole time growing up, because I think my first training session, me and my dad only went to because we were bored one day and we saw there was a session on, and then since then I've just been going back and I've becoming more and more like loving this because like it's a great group of people that's brought me in. But like I think since like starting training and like before that watching shows like there's just little things you notice now like I've learned that and I've learned this and noticing like little bits but only like trainees will probably notice or like wrestlers people training would notice whereas like fans who not don't know anything about like training or that wouldn't notice if they're just watching the show casually.
Awesome. So, what was it like when the first time you went through the curtain for your first match? What was your energy? What was your thoughts like?
uh I try to remember like first show was last year, like December last year was my first proper show. So I'm gonna count that one. That's my first match. But like I was absolutely like shaking backstage. Like I was like the air, like the feel of like you need to pee, like you need to go to the toilet, but you don't. But your body's because you're so nervous. But as soon as like my music stopped, I went out and I was just all this like energy, and it just felt like I was in the zone as soon as I left the curtain.
Awesome. Do you remember who your opponent was?
Yeah, it was a handicap. There was me, my mate Daz Jacobs, and my mate Alcana, who are two fellow trainees, and we're against these bigger guys called Gino and Abaddon, and they're like these like bigger guys, but they've been on the main shows for a couple of years. But they would basically just be trained at the temple, so we're against them.
Oh wow. So like do you do like do when you do the shows, because a lot of fans I know I have are from the States. So when it comes to shows in the UK, do you guys have to like prepare your shows like for you? Is it easier to prepare for your show like weeks in advance, or do you like know what you're gonna wear? Like for the I mean
Uh,
like for the show, do you know what you're gonna wear immediately, or do you have like an idea?
so for my first match at the first trainee show, before the show started, we had like a little session at my training where because we built, I think we rebuilt the ring from I remember. Everyone who was there was like, it was me and three other people from my match. So we planned everything there and then went to the show and then quickly planned it with my other mate, Daz Jacobs. We planned his bit there and then the whole match was just planned like that day.
Awesome. So when it comes to your training, do you have like a certain schedule, or do you know what days you're doing mat training? You know when you're doing weights, you're doing like the aerobics. Like you know when you're like all that stuff. You have it all planned out.
So for me, because I've only trained at Vessel Island trainee school. I do want to try and go to other places in the future, like Saxo, who's on yours like last week, like talking about like Claw and other places. I want to try and go to them, but at the moment I've just been training at the temple. But the temple is every Saturday and Sunday, and we get set the times of when they're on and when they finish,
Mm,
like a couple of days before, and then if there's enough people going, we'll go on. But I try and go like every Saturday, Sunday.
okay. So let's talk about your gear. Who made them?
I'm gonna be honest, ordered off Amazon,
Mm,
and then cause I don't like at the moment I'm looking for a job, so I don't have the money to make custom gear. So all my gear is just I've bought off Amazon, and uh, my shirt I just made one day on a like shirt website, and then my dad bought me as like a little gift before like my first show.
Yeah, it takes something because when it comes to wrestling gear, it must be a really expensive thing for you guys. It's not like wrestling fans then think like, oh, they probably have a mom that sews, or their grandma's
Mm,
like, I'll make you your gear, or a sister that says, I have these leggings that I don't wear anymore. They're not see through, but I think you'll like them.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Because I do want to try and get custom gear in the future. It's just finding people who do custom gear and also having the money to get it. I'm
yeah.
thinking of like designs and all that. 'Cause,
Yeah, I get that. It's a crazy thing to be a wrestler. I've asked tons of people like that those questions, and they sometimes like, yeah, this or that, and then they're like, oh no, it's not
mm,
that easy, dude. um, so what is your like after a show, after your shows or train like when you do your training shows, where do you eat? Like, what's your favorite place to eat for dinner?
uh, for us, our training shows are pretty late in the like the last two are pretty late in the day. So our training shows so usually are like 7, I think it was like 7 p.m. and then a bit later, so finished late. So I just had my dinner at home. So I just had it when I went home.
Hmm. Everybody lately has all been saying they went to McDonald's. So I'm like, Here comes McDonald's
I'll
again. McDonald's is gonna be
I'd
like,
love.
we don't
I
know
think
you guys.
maybe once I ordered. I think like once we ordered a Mackey's, but because I went home with my I think my nan gave me my dad a lift, so I went home with them,
Hmm.
and we just ate when we were home.
So, what kind of advice did you get from the person who trained you, like for the way you tossed in all your stuff that you do, your character and everything?
Um, that's a good thing he's taught. I think a lot of people told me because I'm one who overthinks a lot, so maybe just don't overthink. Because that's one thing I do a lot in training is overthink like the littlest thing. But I think because I don't think something like there's probably is something important he's told me, but it's just not going to come to my mind at this moment. But uh,
Oh,
they've told me like a lot of good feedback. Like so I've been trained by a bunch of different people like about like who from UK based, and they've all taught me different stuff, which I love. They've taught me like different ways to do stuff.
so before we go, if my fans want to follow you on social media, how can they find you?
Uh, so the main one I use is Instagram, which is that Lapkin boy, and yeah, that's kind of the only one I have. is Instagram.
Okay. If I know you're very young in the business, but uh, if anybody wants to pick up anything like an 8x10 of yours, like how can they find it?
Uh, I don't have any at the moment.
Okay.
Like I'm still freak. I've only had like two proper main matches, and they were both trainee shows. So I'm still frequently new to the business. Like I've been training for like 3 years, like nearly, and I've only frequently stopped being like doing shows for my training. But like, so if anyone I think wants to do wrestling, like it's just what I've been told, like it's like just find a good school, and if it's the people there, it's like my training at least, everyone's there. It's like the nicest group of people, and everyone just like celebrates when someone achieves, which I love with my trainee school. Like everyone's just so supportive of each other, and it's like one big like family in my like eyes, which I love. So like just yeah, just find a good place.
That's cute. You kind of got my last question because I was gonna say if there's any kids out there that wanted to get into the business like you did,
Yeah.
what kind of advice would you tell them?
Like I said, I started this because I was bored one day and I went and just loved it. But I think like especially like for kids, like I think go and try it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. It's something that like you might not like at the beginning, but as you carry on, you get better. Because when I first started, I was a bit like, oh, this is tough. When I first started, we didn't have a wrestling ring at the time. We had this boxing because we train at a boxing gym. We had a boxing gym and we'd do rolls and we wouldn't properly do bumps because you can't bump in a boxing ring, so it sucks. But then when we got to the wrestling ring, that's when I was like, okay, I'm really enjoying this now. I'm loving this. And then one day, maybe you can be on a show and get chopped in front of a bunch of people.
Mm.
No, I think.
Yeah, as the picture that you gave me, I was going, look, I looked at it because I always look at every wrestler's pictures. Let's see if there's
Yeah.
anything that's in it that goes, okay, now I need another picture. Because I had one wrestler send me a picture of her, like the one like this, and I didn't realize her forehead was pouring blood. And then another one, she was like, and then she was just
Yeah.
covered in blood, like face, shirt, everything. I was like, well, I can't use that one. And then I found the next one, and I was like, I'll use the
Yeah.
one that she's like this, even though I realized it was blood on her head. And I'm like, maybe that's why
Yeah.
she was pointing at her head.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Because I was at training today and you messaged me like saying send a promo pic. I was with my mates and it's like, should I send this one? Because that's my favorite promo pic of me. And like I find it funny because that handprint was like I said from my first training match. Like I did a spot where I got slammed. Like we were getting battered the whole match, and I did a spot where uh, Gino slammed me, and I nipped
Mm.
up, and the whole crowd like, oh my god, he's fighting back, and he just turned around and just chopped me back down in like a second. But I got like one of the loudest reactions of the night, and that was just was amazing for me. And it's funny because like I had a massive handprint on my chest all week, and I went to college with this massive handprint, like there, like you can see it like underneath, like a tiny bit underneath my shirt. There's this massive handprint. But that was probably my favorite memory of since starting this journey of wrestling. It's just that one thing where I just got chopped and the whole crowd like cheered, like when I nipped up and I got chopped, and then it was just a bunch of like oh no.
It's crazy. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It really means a lot to have a young, awesome independent wrestler like you from the UK. Definitely tell your wrestling friends. Please tell your trainer.
Yeah.
I would definitely love to have them on the podcast this year. I'm Joe Panther III.
I'm Jozy Lapkin.
And we will catch you in the next one.
Bye.